together and they
Yeah, they
review
do
that
some
standard.
edits.
Yeah, and so this is the year, the 2020 Consensus Committee. Gene's on it.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Okay, well, there's one change coming that I absolutely hate.
Which is it?
And we need to rally the troops and get people involved and figure out. Now, if you like it, you like it, but if you don't, you don't. It's number 11 where you measure the slope, right? Hold on. I'm so not working well today. I don't know what's going on with me. So the change they're talking about making is if you're in a story and a half.
Right, and you have the slope ceilings.
Yeah, you got a slope ceiling, you go down to a knee wall. Where do you start your tape measure? 5 foot mark, right? So Gene brought this up. There's some confusion on that.
Taking in the studs or not?
Yeah, do you include the outside wall or not? And I've ever since Gene brought that up, I've been asking people. Do you add to the thickness of the wall or not? And more often than not, I hear, no, I do not. It doesn't say to, so I don't. Every once in a while, I'll hear somebody say, well, yeah, I do. And while the standard doesn't say to specifically, the rest of the
Logic should prevail.
The rest of the standard says outside, right? So there is some confusion there. There are some people doing it one way, some people doing it the other way. I get it. And so, yeah, let's clean that up. That's fine. What they're proposing is that you measure up on the wall 5 foot, measure across to the other side. Starting point, you don't add the thickness to the wall. You do add the thickness to the wall. So the proposal is you're going to add the thickness of only one wall, not two.
Where's the rationale in that? I'm not seeing any logical thinking in that.
I'm the only one that voted no.
Well, good for you, because if I would have been there, I would have voted no.
I think there's one other person that finally changed their vote to no, but right now that's going to pass. Get involved and ask it to change.
Okay, well then here's the thing. Should you have any sway with the committee, please put me on the committee, because that is just illogical.
It kind of doesn't make sense, right? Do one way or the other, right? If you want the outside wall, make that the rule. If you want to keep it the way where it doesn't, it's the inside wall, do it. But don't. I think the rationale is this: the building community that's on the committee. I don't know if this is just new construction or what. If you have to have what's called a fire stop.
Yes.
And on that fire stop, you have to put insulation. I guess in their jurisdiction, maybe all. I don't know. You have to put insulation and an outside wall covering even. Oh, it's very important. It's not the president, but it's important. Okay. All right. I'm going to go down on that gain a little bit. We've never had this problem before, so I'm not sure what's going on here. Yeah, I did. I got to unplug it if I try and push it down anymore. All right. So anyway, Melissa, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Right. We're there. Right. Okay. So, honestly, Brian, we need to fight that because.
Oh, we do. And listen, for everyone watching, and for you, and get the word out, and you need to read it for yourself and make sure you interpret it the same way I do. But I mean, ask Jean, because I don't know if she knows, but hopefully she does. There is an ability for public comment between now and March 23rd.
Okay.
To have hundreds or thousands of appraisers and even non-appraisers get involved in this. This is an opportunity to make a difference. And if we don't chime in and that's the new rule that's going to Yeah, it is. So
That doesn't.
you talk about the appraisal community being confused right now. They're going to be very confused.
Yes, yes, I agree. That needs correction.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and maybe what we'll do, well versed on this, I'll send you some links. And I don't know, maybe Ben can put a link up on the chat at some point today. But maybe what we need to do is have another webinar. Maybe we'll pull Hamp in, have an emergency webinar because
Okay,
if we wait until the end of March, then it's going to be too late.
it's too late. No.
Benjamin, are you? Can you jump on here for a second?
Yes.
All right. So why don't we think about trying to do a breaking alert special edition webinar and get Hamp involved and talk about this issue, and we can invite somebody from the committee. I mean, someone from ANSI or from the committee. I don't care.
That's a good idea. Your mic is still cutting in and out a little bit. You might want to adjust it a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know what to do, guys.
Go to another channel.
All right, how about that? Is that any better? Let me try one more thing. What about that? Is that better?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to hold this button the whole time, but you can hear me better that way? Melissa, you got me?
I got you. You're
Okay.
good.
All right. Well, we're past time, so let's go ahead and get started. We've got several folks watching. And Melissa, on this topic, I've actually had people reach out to me individually. I had a gentleman from Nashville text me this morning. Hi, George. And he's going to be watching the webinar because he's got a complex assignment. And maybe I'll pull his about what his challenge is, and we can talk about it a little bit. I had another gentleman on LinkedIn put a nice comment on, and he said, I'm anxious for this webinar because he's working on one right now. He didn't say what one is, but I'm assuming he meant log home because that's what we were talking about. Let me kick off the show and we'll get rolling here. Good morning, appraisers. You're watching the Appraisal Report webinar brought to you by the fine folks at Appraiser eLearning. I'm your host, Bryan Reynolds. We're excited that you're here. We're excited our guest is here today. These programs are offered free of charge. They are typically the fourth Thursday of every month at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. We're excited that you're here. These sessions are recorded. So as I always say, if you can't watch it in its entirety, you can get on YouTube and go back and watch the full recorded version at any time. And all of our past webinars are on there as well. So you can go back and watch as many as you want. There's quite the library building up. That being said, you may have heard Melissa and I talking that maybe we need to do a special edition or a breaking news webinar. So how you're going to know about those is go ahead and click the subscribe button right now. It should be right under me somewhere on the right-hand side of the screen. It's just a subscribe button. Click that. That is just merely you're subscribing to our YouTube channel. And that way it'll keep you in the know. If we do have a special edition webinar, and we occasionally, it will notify you and let you know we're doing that. And this special edition that Melissa and I just talked about that should happen, needs to happen, is on an upcoming change that may impact you as the appraisal community. Yes. So let me get those and see if that helps. I'm tickled to death to have a guest here, Miss Melissa Bond. She's a CE instructor. She is a practicing appraiser. She's a very knowledgeable person. She's a great individual. Melissa, thank you for being here, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you, Bryan. I appreciate being here today. A little bit about me. I am a practicing appraiser, as Bryan said, 27 long years or short years, however you choose to look at it. I prefer to call it short years. I enjoy what I do every day. I live in a rural area. I appraise rural properties. Rural properties have so many challenges. I believe in challenging myself, and I hope that you do too, because that's one of those areas that we can stretch, we can learn. And so that's pretty much who I am and what I do on a daily basis. So I'm excited to be here today, Bryan, and I'm excited to talk about some complex properties, and hopefully we can help someone solve some little issues that they may be experiencing.
Great, great, great. Well, can you hear me better now? Ben's been
I can
yelling
hear
at me.
you very well. Yes.
Okay, and I'm not breaking up. Ben, give me a thumbs up or say good job or something.
Much better. We're proud of you, Bryan. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know what I did, but I guess I fixed it, and so I'm glad that people can hear me now. Because if you haven't met me, if you don't know me, I kind of like to talk. So here we go. Melissa, again, thank you for being here. If somebody wanted to actually see you live and in action, where's your travels going to take you? Where are you going to be coming up?
Well, my soon-to-be scheduled CEs, on-site CEs, are going to be in the Baton Rouge, Louisiana area, Birmingham, Alabama area, Dallas, Texas, New Orleans, Louisiana.
You're all over the place. And
I
so
see.
if somebody wants to come out and see you at a live event, where can they find details on that? You got a website or something that they could pull up?
Yes, I do. My website is ceinstructor.com, and you will find my live courses there, and you'll find a little bit of information.
Great, great. So it's ceinstructor.com. Is that what I heard?
Yes, it is.
And then you're going to be in Bay St. Louis in April, right?
Yes, definitely looking forward to the ACTS conference, and I hope everyone listening has that on their radar. It's going to be informative. You have the opportunity to speak with those that truly make our profession move forward. Hope to see each of you there.
Yeah, so what she's talking about is what's called ACTS. It stands for the Appraiser Conference and Trade Show, and that is brought to you by the National Association of Appraisers, NAA, as well as Appraiser eLearning. So Appraiser eLearning is a partner, partnered up, teamed up, if you will, to present that, and we're excited to be a part of that. We'd like all the appraisal community to come out. You get 14 hours of CE. There's some pre-conference education if you need more than 14 hours. Diana Jacobs going to be there teaching USPAP. Guys, it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got a deep sea fishing event planned. I think Saturday they've got a golf scramble, so that would be a good time. And the cool thing about these conferences, if you've never been, I encourage you to go. I mean, it's an opportunity to meet a lot of folks. Fannie Mae typically goes to these, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, Appraisal Foundation folks. And I don't know that all those folks will be at this one, but it's not uncommon for them to be there, whether they're actually exhibiting or not. So we encourage you to go. If you've never been to a conference, I promise you're going to walk away learning something. And you're not stuck with one speaker all day. If you come to one of my classes, you're stuck all day. I apologize. But in this venue, you get a speaker for a couple of hours or an hour or 45 minutes, and then whoop, another one pops up, and then another one pops up. So if you don't like the first one or two or number 7, you've got them peppered throughout the day. So it gives you an opportunity to hear from a lot of smart people. And then, sometimes I'm up there too. So let's dive in the subject matter. First of all, Melissa, what would you say is the definition of a complex property? Or in your opinion, what makes a property or an assignment for that matter more complex than one that's a non-complex?
Well, of course, when we're talking about complex properties, or a complex assignment, we're definitely discussing something that's perhaps out of the cookie cutter norm. Fortunately, the area that I appraise in, almost all assignments are complex properties.
Wow. So that's, I mean, everything you're doing is complex.
Just about,
Wow.
and it's truly exciting. And as you know, with any appraising, once you get in that groove of doing something, you just continue, and your knowledge base has the ability to expand.
Right.
So it is good.
So, and I know you're a very positive person, and you see opportunity in things other than just doom and gloom all the time, right? So let me tell you, I had an assignment one time that I got a call to do a 50,000 square foot light industrial building. I'm like, okay, I quoted a fee for that. And when I got to the property, there was a 50,000 square foot light industrial building. However, there was also a single family house on the property.
Mhm.
There was a manufactured home that had a ground lease on the property. There was a 10,000 square foot concrete block building that it used to be a slaughterhouse. And then they had a little row apartment complex on there, just maybe five units or something like that, 6 units for the workers. It really kind of looked like a Bates Motel. So I got to the site and it was something completely different than what I thought it would have been. So instead of throwing my hands up and screaming and say, I'm getting out of this one, I see that as an opportunity. Or maybe
Absolutely.
you drive up to a house. This happened to me as well. I thought it was a typical, 1,500 square foot house on an acre. And when I drive up, I see this monstrosity. It's a 12,000 square foot home on 40 acres with a guest house and a barn and cows. And I called the homeowner and I said, have you left to meet me yet? And he said, I'm getting in the truck now. And I said, well, get back out of the truck. And I said, I'm happy to do this. I'm going to let you know I'm not afraid of it. But I didn't know that you had the biggest house in Ohio County. And he started laughing. He said, well, I actually do have the biggest house in the county. I said, well, I'm happy to do it, but I'm going to have to talk to my client because I'm not going to do it for the fee it's different, right? It's different. So what would you tell our viewers right now if they're, and most of our folks are residential in nature, I'm sure. So let's stick with the residential side of it.
Mhm.
You drive up, you think you have that typical assignment, and you drive up and it is that 12,000 square foot monstrosity. Would you recommend that they just run away from that, withdraw the assignment, or how should they handle that?
Okay, never withdraw from an assignment unless you feel that you cannot competently complete that assignment, or you're not willing to acquire the competency to complete that assignment.
Okay.
I look at things like that as a challenge. And Bryan, I will tell you that there have been many times that I have gone out to a property, and honestly, driving down the road as I'm approaching it, I'm thinking, man, not today, just not today. This is not the one I want. But I get over that rather quickly and just embrace it. That's probably the word that I would say to folks the most. Just embrace it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have had one of the most unusual properties that I remember doing is out in a extremely rural area, just extremely rural area. There's probably a dozen sales annually, period. Okay. And driving out to the property, I had to drive off a public roadway into a functioning industrial site. Through that was the easement to my subject property, which was on maybe 60, 80 acres. And when I drive up to the residential improvements itself, it was a metal building. Now, it was hard to tell the difference between the house and the barn because they were identical. But I assume the ones with the rockers on the front porch.
They live in one, they got the horses in the other, right? I'm just not sure which. Okay.
And that was truly one of the days when I just said, darn. But then I went ahead and did it. Now, the problem is, just like you alluded to earlier, sometimes the fee that we've quoted may not be commensurate with the amount of work that's going to be involved with that. So at that point, we need to go back to our client and we need to have a conversation with our client. And guys, that's purely acceptable if the assignment is beyond something that was expected. And perhaps even in that case, the client wasn't even aware of the uniqueness. So it is acceptable for us to go back to our client and have that conversation regarding, you know, the fee needs to be commensurate with the type of assignment.
Sure, absolutely. Guys, we get paid for two things and two things only. We get paid for our time and our knowledge. And obviously, the longer you spend on a project, you know, you got a big complex assignment like this, it's going to take you longer. So more work should be more money. And I would encourage folks, like Melissa said, you know, reach back out to that client, have a conversation with them. Hey, this is completely different than what I was anticipating. If you lack the competency to do it, maybe you don't immediately withdraw. Maybe you see that as a learning opportunity. You know, so USPAP allows you to, believe it or not, USPAP allows you to accept assignments you're not competent to do. There's just three things you got to do. You got to disclose your lack of competency. You got to get competent, whatever that means. And then finally, you disclose all that stuff again in the appraisal report, right? So maybe you call somebody and you team up with them. Or maybe you say, look, I'll give you the assignment. Melissa, you're appraising these complex assignments all the time, maybe a stigmatized property or a barn, right? I've never done one. I mean, I have, but let's pretend. I've never done one. So how about I give you this order? You can keep all the money, or maybe throw me a couple of bucks. But it's important because now it's a learning opportunity for me. I'm going to increase my knowledge base. So it's a great opportunity, if you will. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of this, because I know we've got a lot of viewers and they're really interested more in how to work one of these, right? What to do. So you go out and you look at one. Let's just use your example there. You drive up to the property and you see two barns and you're like, gosh, there's supposed to be a house here somewhere. Maybe it's a new construction. They didn't send me the plans and specs. And the property owner walks out and greets you. And he says, well, you want to look at the house first or the barn first? And you look around and you say, well, I only see two barns. No, this one is my house. And you're like, oh, pardon me. So what do you do? I mean, I think all of us watching can figure out, you know, kind of the inspection process or the observation, as we like to call it, right? I get that. Oh, thank you. But what do you do? I mean, how do you handle solving that valuation problem?
Well, at that point, you just have a uniqueness from your design and appeal perspective. And I will tell you this, when I walked into the front door of the home, it was now what's considered just an industry standard. So your true uniqueness was the exterior of the home. I actually have, if I can, Ben, could you do my Quonset hut?
Sure, 1 second.
Okay, I'd like to show you a property that is pretty much like that. Ben is going to give you some interior photos. And I'd like for you to look at those for just a moment. Okay, that's an exterior photo. That's the back. This is the interior photo of the Quonset hut. Now give us the front view, Ben, if you could, please. That's the front view. Now, again, this you can liken to the metal building home I was just telling you about. Yeah. When you drive up to this, you have such a uniqueness about it. However, once you walk into the door, this is what you see. This is just an industry standard, a typical single family look. So what we're looking at is just the design is unique. So when we're going to comp this, now in my area, I will tell you these Quonset hut homes are common. However, here's the kicker. They're typically built on an owner's land, and the turnover isn't there as much. So we don't usually see these hit the market as a sale. Now, so what do we do when we're comping this? Of course, we're going to look for other properties that are unique.
You just cry, right? You just, I give up. This is killing me.
After you sit down and have a good cry, you go ahead and tackle this. And this is without question a desirable product. This is a desirable home, and it does have marketability. And we do know that our secondary market financing, that's really the key. That's what your underwriter's looking for when you're developing this and you're reporting this. Your underwriter's looking for, is this such an atypical property that it doesn't have marketability in the area? Well, in my area, I will tell you this property has marketability. It does have desirability, and that can be gauged by the amount of single family units that are much like this one. But again, our problem may lie in one hasn't sold recently or even in the last 10 years. So we can use other unique styled homes that are just like this one. Once you're inside, you see absolutely no difference. So we can pull in some of those log homes, some of those, well, I think an underground home would be a little stretch on this one, but it still has some uniqueness. The metal building homes, extremely common in my area. So we can go back in time and establish that there is an acceptance of a unique styled home or non-standard, which is what some of FHA, VA calls them non-standard home styles. So it's really not an insurmountable appraisal problem when we look at it that way.
Right. I am trying to share a screen here. So let me try and do that real quick if it will let me. All right. Is that showing a 1004 form?
I can see the 1004.
Okay, great. So everybody watching, you're familiar with this form, Uniform Residential Appraisal Report. It's the current form, that's likely to change here probably soon. But as we scroll down to the bottom of this form, I want to remind our viewers of this last area. I had someone from Freddie Mac say they'll see people appraise an extremely unique property, right? Look at this very last sentence down at the bottom. It says, does the property generally conform to the neighborhood? Functional utilities, style, condition, use, construction, etc. So if you're appraising a property and it doesn't conform to what is typically around the neighborhood, the proper box to check would be no.
Right.
It doesn't in and of itself mean that they're not going to provide financing for that.
That's correct.
But you're communicating to your client what you're dealing with. Hey, I'm dealing with a unique property. There's not one on every corner. All things don't look the same. And that's okay. So appraisers, the first thing I want you to realize is don't check yes, that this is, the same as everything else around it when it's not, right? So that I wanted to jump in and share that.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's look at that picture again. Ben, put that picture back up again. I want to see it.
Which one?
The ones you just had the quantum, am I saying that right?
Quonset. Yes, that's the front view.
Okay. So let's just hang tight right there a second. Appraisers, if you get the requirement or asked to appraise this and you drive out, don't cry and just drive off real quick. This is an opportunity. And apparently Melissa has, but maybe you become the unique appraiser. Maybe you're unique in other ways, but maybe you become the specialist for this kind of property, right? There's a lot of appraisers that wouldn't be interested in this, but where I live, we have 3 approaches to value. How many you got down there in Mississippi, Melissa?
Well, oddly enough, Brian, we have 3 as well.
So the economic influences that create value are the same: scarcity, utility, desire, and purchasing power. They don't change. We have three approaches to value: the sales comparison approach, the income approach, and the cost approach, right? You're going to tackle this just like you would tackle a non-complex property. Could it be challenging? Yeah. But your options are to, we talk about this with log homes. Ben, you can get rid of the picture. Thank you very much. We talk about this with, let's just ask some of our viewers and have them asked to chime in as well. And we are starting to get some questions. So I'll ask some of those of you in just a moment, Melissa. But here's something we hear a lot. You're appraising a log home. Okay. You're asked to go appraise a log home. That's the assignment request you get. You start looking for log home sales and maybe there's none, right? I don't know. And the underwriter or processor comes back and says, you have to use one, right? I mean, that's what you always hear. You have to use at least one log home comparable sale. But what do you do if you don't have one?
Well,
how would you handle that, Melissa? Or what advice would you give our viewers for that?
Well, I would say this. Number one, as much as we'd like to, we can't create one. Darn, that's not possible. Okay, so why don't we go back in time? Go back in time to establish that log homes are indeed, or whatever your unique style home is acceptable in your area, that there is a market for it, but the turnover may be low. In some cases, like I said, the turnover may be due to these properties are typically built on the owner's land for personal use and not so much for resale. So, we go back in time and we establish that. And then we're going to also, if you do put that comp in your report to satisfy that particular element, then if a time adjustment is warranted, well, yes, that scope of work increases. It does increase. So that's one of the reasons when we have these complex properties for that conversation with our client, that this is going to, my scope of work has expanded now. And we need to have a fee that's commensurate with that. But going back in time, pulling that comp, and then establishing if your market has had a change, a positive change or a negative change, either one, and applying that adjustment where it's applicable. It's not insurmountable, but it is a little bit of additional work.
Yeah. So, I had one time, and I want to throw this in because one of our viewers asked specifically about log homes. Okay. And so I appraised a log home one time, and it was a big one. It was 5,000 square feet or nearabouts, new, had a basement, I think had 20 or 30 acres, had a lake, had a guest house. Let's pretend that's not there a minute. It was nice, had a barn. Guess how many log home sales I had?
I'm going to go with 0.
Actually, believe it or not, I had some log home sales. Guess how many log home comparable sales I had?
That's your 0.
0. And so I didn't use any. And the viewers out there that are saying, oh, you got to have log home sale because the underwriter said so, or process. I got that call. And I had to have a conversation with the underwriter. And I said, I have some log home sales, but it would be completely meaningless to put those in here because they're not comparable, right? And I had to tell her a story. And so this was my story. Let's pretend a minute that you want to buy a log home, all right? You want to buy a nice big log home, 4,000 plus feet, with a basement, newer, with a lake on 30 acres and a barn. And there it is. You can buy it. Scarcity, utility, desire, and purchasing power, all in balance. You can buy it. And you go up and you knock on the door and you say, hey, man, where do I sign the contract? I'm ready to buy it today. And the guy says, I'm sorry, we've decided not to sell the property. That's the one I want. What other property would you consider as a substitute property? That is the comp. So, oh, wait, look, down the street, there's a log home for sale. Let's go look at that one. You want to? So we go down there, and Melissa, it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath on a ½ acre for $125,000. Would it compete for the same buyers as our first one?
Absolutely not.
Probably not. It's got log on it. I don't care if it's got log on it. Some people live in houses because they want to. Some people live in houses because they have to. The typical buyer of that secondary house probably doesn't have the purchasing power to buy that one. And although the buyers of that first house would clearly have the purchasing power to buy that second house, they probably don't desire it. It probably doesn't meet their utility, right?
Right.
So you're going to be looking for other houses that would meet those scarcity, utility, desirability, and purchasing power. And so finally, I told that story to the underwriter, and so finally I said, put yourself in the buyer's shoes. You're the buyers of that big house, and there's no other log homes with all those amenities available. There's a log home down the street for 125. She agreed she wouldn't buy that. There's no other big house with a lake in the $450,000 price range, blah, blah, blah. What would you do? And she paused for the longest time. And she finally said, Melissa, well, I guess I'd build one. And actually, that's an option.
Right answer. Yeah.
That's an option. Maybe if you think the typical buyer would go out and secure land and build their own, then maybe you would do a cost approach in this complex assignment. And that's going to be okay. But keep in mind that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac they'll not buy the loan if the appraisals doesn't include a sales comparison approach. They will not buy loans based on a cost or income solely. So with that being said, Melissa, is it fair to say that maybe there are some properties that they're just not going to go secondary market?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the reason for the guidelines, but that also does not mean that just because it won't go secondary market financing, that does not mean that someone doesn't have the buying power to do other. So we need to bear that in mind. And as you said before, we have 3 approaches to value for a reason. Sometimes we get locked into that sales comparison approach. And yes, if you're doing secondary market financing, you should in fact be. But this is where we can challenge ourselves to let's think outside the box. If I didn't think outside the box, I would have had to stop appraising in my area a long time ago. And I would have been in downtown Nashville, to make it easy.
Right.
So we do have to think outside the box sometimes and use those other approaches, because as you said, to duplicate, if someone wanted that particular property with all of its amenities, all of its improvements, a duplication of that may be the ticket. There's some leaning in that direction. We need to open that up when we're trying to discover how we're going to solve that particular problem.
Right. Let's move over a minute to a 1-bedroom house.
Oh, what a favorite.
Now we'll do a couple, because when I was a little kid, it wasn't uncommon. I mean, Thoroughbred Acres, I always bring that subdivision up. It's just a great example subdivision. They built, one model was a 2-story home, 2,240 square feet. And all the bedrooms were upstairs. All 4 bedrooms were upstairs, the master bedroom and the kids, I guess you call it, right? So they were all up there. Now with time, you don't see that as much. You don't see, we got, even on a ranch style house, we see what's called a split design, right? We're going to put the owner's suite over here on one side. We're going to put the kids or guest rooms on another side, right? We're going to have that separation. And so when I was little, they started doing that with multi-levels. They'd put the owner's suite on the main level, and we'd put the kids upstairs, right? Well, now they've decided to switch that and say, you know, instead of going up, we're going to go down. And so we have some property, we just did one that had 2 bedrooms on the main level. They had 2 additional bedrooms in the basement. And there's no question in my market participants are viewing that as a 4-bedroom home, not a 2-bedroom, right? But before we get to that, let's just talk about a true 1-bedroom home. I mean, you walk in the house and there is a living room, there is a kitchen, there is 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and maybe a small utility. There's no other area that we could call a bedroom, right? So how do you handle that? What do you do with that?
That is the assignment we turned down, Brian. No. What we do is we start to look for other properties that are 1 bedroom simply because we're looking at utility. You have to look at how can that property be used? What are the many options? Well, I think you'll agree with me that you have limited options for 1 bedroom. I thankfully, I've only done one bedroom property in my 27 years of appraising. I'm not looking to do the second one, but I have done one. And I will tell you that I did not have comparables. I did have sales. And folks, if you're listening, it is acceptable for your commentary in your report to clearly communicate that you have 3 sales represented in your sales comparison approach. You do not have comparables. That sentence right there sets the stage for the rest of what you're going to discuss.
And Melissa, let me ask you to expand on that, because I know what you're talking about, but maybe some of our viewers don't know what you're talking about. And I'd like to remind everyone watching, we have a wide variety of audience members here. So while the majority may be practicing appraisers, we have lenders, we have AMCs, we have realtors, we have regulators, and we've got people from all over the world. We had someone say hello from Africa the other day, right? So we've got people from all over the world watching this program, or will watch the recorded version. And so maybe a realtor watching, or a processor watching, or, you know, they might not know what you're talking about. She's saying sales, and she's saying not comparable sales, but if you put the sales on the URAR, isn't that a comparable sale? So I want you to elaborate on that just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Okay, all right. I will say it this way. When we're doing, and we're going to go with secondary market financing for a moment, because that's just going to be the easy example. We are expected to utilize the sales comparison approach and discuss that sales comparison approach to value in order to arrive at an indicated value. So when we're doing that, we know that each of those clearly state comp 1, comp 2, comp 3, and we're going to put those. But when you're doing your commentary, when we are summarizing that sales comparison approach, it is incumbent upon us to communicate clearly what is before you in this appraisal report. Now, that's a USPAC requirement. We need to be clear with what we're doing. And that first sentence saying these are sales, these are not truly comparables. However, you know, this is all that I have. Okay, right. No one wants to hear that. This is all there is. And you know, I see this a lot. I've done review work for quite a number of years, and I see some summaries of sales comparison commentary that can almost fit into 10 other appraisals. That's really not the purpose of that section. The purpose of that section is to discuss the sales above, or the comps above. So let's be specific when we discuss that information. Let's go ahead and educate our reader to the fact that this is the best that was available, and yet they're dissimilar enough not to be called a a substitute property, because that's what we're looking for. is a substitute. And in this case, the utility is the greatest. It may not be size. I mean, the you know, the 1-bedroom property could be 1,800 square feet GLA. You know, where in the neighborhood, all other 1,800 GLA properties are 3 and even 4 bedrooms, because some folks like to call a good little closet a bedroom.
Yeah.
But so your utility is so different. The occupants of the home, the livability, all of that is hindered by the fact that you do only have one area for sleeping facilities designated as sleeping facilities. So we need to communicate that in our sales summary of sales comparison approach. And you explain exactly why you're using these sales and how you're arriving at that value based on those.
So what I'm hearing in a nutshell is you're saying that you're not saying these particular sales you utilize are comparable. In other words, they wouldn't necessarily compete for the same buyers as our subject property, but because of the scarcity of sales selection, right? You just had to use the best that you could find. So I'm going to use sales that aren't necessarily comparable in my analysis, because that's all I got, right? And Fannie Mae does allow for that. Freddie Mac does allow for that. I mean, that's all you get. You know, when you're faced with a dilemma and a challenge, you know, I went over this with someone just the other day. I mean, you've only got a few options, right? You have the option of withdrawing from the assignment. You have the option of using another approach to value, or you have the option of either going back in time, which is what you mentioned earlier, right? Or expanding your search radius. I mean, that's really all the options you've got, guys. Let's keep it simple, even when you're working on something that's hard. Oh, that sounds like a good slogan. Ben, remember that for me. Because, I mean, our hands are somewhat tied. I remember one time I got an assignment to do a 1-bedroom, and it was truly a 1-bedroom. I mean, it's like exactly what I described a moment ago. There was no add-on, no conversion, no. Sometimes you'll get an assignment and you have a 1-bedroom, but they have a living room and a family room, right? And maybe they could turn that family room into a bedroom. So now you got 2 bedrooms, but this one wasn't. It was 1-bedroom. And I remember I found a sale over on Calhoun Street that said 1-bedroom in the MLS, and I was excited, Melissa. So I called and started doing a little research. And I talked to the loan officer, and they said, well, it was a 1-bedroom, but Fifth Third Mortgage doesn't finance 1-bedroom, so they turned it into a 2-bedroom. Well, how'd you do that? I don't know. Called the agent, they told me the same thing. Called the appraiser's office, and the appraiser wasn't in, but the assistant said it was 2 bedrooms. Now, this is the appraisal office that did the appraisal for financing of that sale when it sold, that now I'm trying to use it as a comp. I finally when I went to take my comp picture, I went up and knocked on the front door. And the young lady answered the door, and I identified, I'm an appraiser. I'm appraising a house down the street. I want to use, same thing you had to do when you got your loan. Is this a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom? I don't care. I just need to know. She said, well, it was a 1-bedroom, but we couldn't get the loan, so we turned it into a 2. I've heard that story. How'd you do that? She said, you want to come in? I'd love to come in. She let me in her house. There's a living room. There's a hallway, a kitchen, a doorway, not a hallway. You go through the next doorway, now there's a hallway. To your left, it dead ends on a bathroom. Adjacent to that, it's a bedroom. 1 door left. I opened the door. I'm being generous if I say it was a 6x6 room. Had a vinyl floor, which sometimes the whole house has vinyl floors. That's fine. Had a furnace in it, and I had a washer and dryer in it. Now, is that a bedroom? I don't think so. The appraiser called it that so they get financing. Appraisers don't do that. I mean, if it's a 1-bedroom, it's a 1-bedroom, and you're going to have to deal with that. So let me ask you another question, because this was the question that someone reached out to me directly, and it's about a 1-bedroom, but I think it's a little different, and I might look up his actual question. Let me just read it. He said, going to check out your webinar this morning as I'm appraising what is technically a 1-bedroom, $700,000 to $800,000 property in Oak. I'll just leave it at that, in Oak. Okay. I I have to just guess that it has, you know, 1 bedroom above grade, Melissa, and then probably additional private sleeping quarters in the basement. I don't know that, but I'm guessing. So how do you address that? If you walk into a house and someone has taken that design and thought, what we're going to do is we're going to build the owner suite on the main level, and then in the lower level, we're going to put 3 bedrooms and a family room and a bathroom down. Okay. So for appraisal purposes, above grade is indeed 1 bedroom. How would you handle that?
Well, I can tell you, we're going to go back to some very good commentary. Okay. A lot of photos, a lot of exhibits showing exactly what you have. I will say this, and I will liken that to some properties I've done here in my area. What can it compete with functionally? What can it functionally compete with? Okay. And I know when we're getting into that above grade, below grade, now we're getting into some ANSI issues. You know, I absolutely love ANSI, and you know, if we follow it to the letter, we have to be very careful, because sometimes it can prohibit us from including some spaces that maybe the market perceives. You know, market perception makes a big difference. The market perceives as a living space, although ANSI may not declare it as such. So anyway, when we look at the property as a whole, it's going to take some communication from us to discuss exactly what's there, and then to discuss how the market perceives this property. I have one in particular, and I'm in a flat area. Okay, I'm in such a flat area.
Oh, okay.
But I do have, every now and then we run up on, you know, some homes that are designed to go inside a hillside. For those, you know, 3 hillsides that we actually have, it's designed to go in a hillside, and it is designed as a single family residence, not a basement. Never was intended to be a basement, but it is below grade. So in that particular home that I did, when I got to my sales comparison approach, I clearly communicated exactly what you have. This was designed to be a single family home. This is not a basement. All of the, let's just say, if in this particular case, it was the kitchen, the dining room, a bathroom, and a utility room that was below grade. So that meant what was above grade was nothing but 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and 1 living space.
Oh, wow.
So it didn't constitute a single family home without incorporating everything. So the point is, it takes communication. There's no substitute for that. You want to have photos that depict exactly what your property is. If it's those bedrooms that are below, if they're finished to the same grade as the rest of the home, communicate that. Almost, and I know this sounds silly, but argue your point. You know, make your point. Our responsibility in, say, secondary market financing, or even just for an in-house loan or something like that, is to communicate with our client that they have a comfort level to make that prudent lending decision. You know, and I have found that using the words typically found and market acceptable, those are warm and fuzzy words that an underwriter wants to hear. We can almost sell anything if we communicate that this is typically found and it's market acceptable, meaning should that become a non-performing loan, there's a position there that the bank can say, okay, this, you know, it's a little unique. Maybe it's above grade, below grade space. It may be that 1 bedroom, you know, it may be those barndo houses, things like that. But the market is accepting of this. So, you know, that's our burden, is to communicate. You just cannot say that enough.
Yeah. So, you know, if I have that design, and we have them now, we have, it's not uncommon to go into a house where it's 1 bedroom above grade, and they put 2 or 3 bedrooms in the basement.
Below Hello.
I wouldn't hesitate, George or whoever, to use a 3 or 4 bedroom comparable.
Mhm,
And I think they're comparable. Now, that's just my opinion, basing on an observation of how market participants behave,
right.
because the additional private sleeping quarters are in the lower level. George Cox had a house on that lower level, had fenestration all the way around the house, doors or windows, offering natural light. Basements are now different than they used to be. I mean, when basements first came on the scene many, many, many years ago, they were just a real deep crawl space. I mean, they were cold, they were wet, they were dark, they were scary. And typically that's where your mechanics were. And now basements are just as nice as the upper level. I mean, they're finishing them out in some cases the exact same, right? So if you have that, yes, technically we have 1 bedroom above grade, but we've got 3 additional sleeping quarters in the basement. And I'm telling you, in my market participants perceive that as a 4 bedroom home. They do not perceive it as a 1 bedroom home. So I'm not going, I mean, obviously if I could find the same thing, that's what I'm going to use, right? But if I can't, I would use a 4 bedroom comparison, and I probably wouldn't make any adjustment for bedroom differential, because at the end of the day, both have 4 bedrooms, and that's how my market recognizes it. So I don't know if that helps you, George. I don't know if that helps you. He just texted me. He's probably saying, shut up, Brian, let her talk.
Well, the key is communication, though. And you're right, Brian, because when we're in the sales comparison approach, it is all about market. It is how the market reacts to those improvements. Now, it is up to the appraiser to communicate that. So, maybe we have a little challenge with communicating it, but that is our burden, is to communicate that to the point that it is understood.
And I agree with you. A lot of times, and Melissa, I'm going to keep you over a couple of minutes if I can. I know you're a busy girl, but I'm going to hold you. We didn't take a break. So, I had a little technical difficulties this morning, which Ben had to get me fixed. And we didn't take a break to try and make up for that. But if I can keep you an extra 5 or 10 minutes, because we do have some questions coming in, and we've only got about 6 minutes left in the show. So I'm gonna hold you hostage just for a few minutes, if that's okay. But we're finding a lot of different architectural designs now, and unique things, whether somebody took a silo and turned it into a house, and it presents challenges for us as practitioners. But our job is to analyze the actions of market participants. How is the market behaving to that? Let's get to a few questions here, if you don't mind. There was one that jumped out at me in particular. I'm gonna let you answer this, and then I'm gonna comment on it too, because I can't help myself. But RF makes a comment, Melissa. He says, if there are no comps, then there is no comparison approach possible. Comparison requires comparison. How would you respond to Mr. or Mrs. RF, whichever the case?
Okay, I think that is a very valid point. You are correct. If we look at the principle of substitution and our sales that we are forced to use are not truly comparable properties, then we're not meeting the principle of substitution. And of course, we're going to see that in our adjustments. That the more adjustments you have, the further away from that principle of substitution you are. So my answer to you would be to go back in time to find properties, or expand, go into parallel markets or other markets that an adjustment for, the differences in the markets can be made. Now, again, this is not going to be a popular answer, because it's going to require an expansion of our scope of work. However, it is the correct way to address this. Go back in time, expand your area, other markets. You're going to do basically 2 appraisals in 1, maybe even 3. But here's the thing to remember. It is our burden to identify you know, that value, or to come to a consensus on something. So if we have to do 2 appraisals in one or 3 appraisals in one in order to establish the fact that these are non-comparables, however, my indicated range can mimic when I do use comparables and I've gone back in time, I've made the appropriate adjustments, or I've expanded my research area, I've made the appropriate adjustments for those parallel markets, then there you have it.
Yeah, so RF, thank you, Melissa, for RF. While I appreciate your comment, and part of me agrees with that, part of me disagrees. My response would be it depends. I mean, if we're talking about something that has to be comparable, well then how comparable does it have to be? Because if we want to take that hard position, say, well, by God, it's got to be comparable. Well, does that mean it's got to be so comparable that you make no adjustments? Because when you make one adjustment, you're acknowledging that property is not comparable. Therefore, you're making an adjustment, right? So while I appreciate what you're saying, and part of me agrees with you, I think the best answer is it depends, right? I will say this as well. I just represented a buyer. I'm a realtor too, real estate agent, realtor. Don't throw anything at me. And I don't do a lot of that, but I do some. And I represented this young lady, helped her find a house. And she was a single young lady, school teacher. Guess what she needed for sleeping quarters? 1 bedroom. So I mean, that's all she cared about. That's all she needed, right? So we were looking at 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. Would she take a 4 bedroom? Sure. It exceeds her requirement for 1 bedroom. Would she take a 3 bedroom? Sure. Would she have been happy with a 2 bedroom? Absolutely. Would she have taken a 1 bedroom? Probably, right? Now, is she your typical buyer? Probably not. And I know that we look through the eyes of a typical buyer. But if you were in an area where you had a lot of folks like that, right, who would consider a 2 bedroom and a 3 bedroom equally, that they were both competing for the same market participants, you could make an argument that they were the same, that they're comparable, even though they're quite different. So anyway, that's my take on RF. Don't hate me. Michael H says, worst case, adjust to cost to reconfigure floor plan for a 2nd bedroom. So I don't think that was a question, just a comment. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, and sometimes we do have areas where you could create another bedroom. Or maybe it has a 1 bathroom and they have the ability, they got space over here to create an additional bathroom. We could do a cost to cure on that. Melissa, here's a question. Alyssa, finally, a webinar that addresses my world. Well, good. I'm glad we're addressing your world. Log cabins and barndominiums. I just heard that term for the first time today, and it's hard for me to say, but I like it. Barndominiums are common here, or typical here. They don't just resell. I'm so happy to have confirmation I've been doing something right. Smile, thank you. Oh, that goes to you, Melissa. Thank
Brian,
you, Elisa.
Can we go ahead and put up my barndominium photos? Ben, could you do that?
Let's do it. We've got some more questions, but go ahead. That's a great time to do that. And I do want to try and answer as many of these as we can.
Okay, I will be brief. Okay, let's go. Okay, here's a barndominium. And Elisa, please forgive me if I say that incorrectly, but let's address this. This is the front of a barndominium. Go ahead and give me the 2nd photo, Ben. And this is going to be the rear. Now, Brian, back to your 1 bedroom situation. This is a 1 bedroom. You're looking at the back of this, that door comes out of the bedroom. This is you walk into living room, kitchen, bathroom, bedroom. 1 bedroom. Now, go to your next one, Ben. This is another barndominium within a 3-mile radius. Wow. Ben, go to the next one.
Don't have to worry about flood. No flooding issues there.
Yeah. This is yet another barndominium, again, within a 3-mile radius of the first one I showed you. But here's the issue. They exist. They're the type of properties that are
Wow. Those are very cool. Very cool. Probably very challenging. And that's something that Ben, you can get rid of that share. Probably something that most of us would freak out driving upon one of those. Hey, Ken B is asking a question. Could you touch on over improved properties and or over improvement as a complex property? So you got a property that let's just say they've overbuilt for the neighborhood. How about something like that?
Okay. Yes, that can definitely turn itself into a complex property when it's overbuilt for the neighborhood, because you do have that diminished rate of return for your improvements. So, whenever you're looking at that price per square foot for that additional space isn't just going to compete equally with, the properties that may be best to be utilized. So it does turn complex. Again, when you're in that sales comparison approach, that needs to be communicated. It may be communicated in the form of a functional adjustment. It could be communicated in the form of a square footage adjustment. Okay, but we need to be clear how we're handling it. And here's one thing to remember, guys. Let's be consistent in how we handle those properties. Let's establish ourselves in the methodology that's recognized, okay? Let's establish ourselves with that, and then let's be consistent across the board. Again, not insurmountable, but we need to communicate. Exactly.
I think one of the biggest problems, and I know this has been a personal challenge for me over the years. I know what I'm thinking.
Right.
I know what I think. I know what I'm trying to say. It's just sometimes I'm not the best communicator in the world when it comes to, typing it down or writing it down. I've been working on a book, Ben's after me for a year, and we're going to try and turn it on into an online course. And it's almost there, but it's a challenge for me, right? I know I can talk all day long, but trying to put my thoughts down in paper form sometimes is a challenge for me. And I think we as appraisers sometimes have a tendency of not communicating in our reports all of our thinking or analysis or how we got to where we were.
And we
Wes,
wanted,
go ahead. Wes G makes a comment, and I want to read this for all the appraisers watching because thank you, Wes, for even sharing this. He said, Bryan, I was having a conversation with my appraisal desk on a log home, and the appraiser had one log home in his report, commented on the lack of other similar design comps. He made adjustments for the differences and commented. As the chief appraiser here, I have to say the report was well supported. Great job on the appraiser's behalf.
Oh,
Thank
wonderful.
you very much. Isn't that, that's fantastic. So we have a chief appraiser watching. He had very nice comments to say about one of his appraiser workers. And he shared that here on the public forum. And thank you, Wes, for doing that. You didn't have to do that. But it's nice for the appraisal community to know that there are some clients or AMCs out there that appreciate what we do instead of just wanting to complain all the time, right? Because that's what appraisers think. So Wes G comes back. Using a 4-bedroom compared to a 1-bedroom with the market support of functional utility adjustment, make property adjustments above and below grade, and you would still be supported? I say yes. I'd probably say yes too, Wes. Charlie says, Melissa, in your diverse low density market, have you ever used regression? Great question, Charlie.
Great question. Wow. Okay, that's what I'm going to say to that. Yes, I do have to utilize everything that's at my disposal. I will tell you this, I'm not as proficient at it as I would like to be. Perhaps I'm technologically challenged. Wait, let me change that. I'm technologically challenged, okay? I'm afraid the old methods are the ones that I adopt more on a regular basis. Whenever you're in an area where you don't have a mass amount of data, sometimes regression tools are less meaningful. So that's one of the things to consider. So I may not be the dinosaur that I appear to be. You know, we just don't have enough data to have a meaningful result. Now, have I ever used it and looked at it as a consideration? Yes, I have, but I've not found the results that I can find, let's say otherwise, using the old-fashioned method of just digging through information myself.
Yeah, it's a great tool. You know, we use it. We use the depreciated cost analysis. Scott Cohen's got a cool tool with that we use. And, you know, Josh has regression and, you know, there's some stuff out there that you can buy. It costs you a little money, but if you utilize those tools and you don't have to buy Scott, you can do it yourself. You don't have to buy Josh Wallace, you can do it yourself, but they've packaged it up to make it real nice. Here's Clinton T says, great stuff, guys. In our markets, we deal with these challenges daily. Appreciate the information you're sharing. We will be sharing this with our appraisers as it addresses many questions. Well, I'm going to stop right there, Melissa. We've got about 3 or 4 more questions. If you can hang tight, let me get you to stay for those. But yes, with Clinton T, I want to open the door up. Clinton, Melissa has just written a course and has shared that with Appraiser eLearning. It's available. Melissa, tell Clinton, and quite frankly, anybody watching, tell us about this course you have. Do you get CE credit for it? What's it about? All that good jazz.
Okay, yes, I do have a CE course with Appraiser eLearning, an online course. I will tell you the gist of what we discuss are these complex properties, these assignments that are out of the norm. I do go through FHA, USDA, VA, and Fannie Mae guidance on each of these situations because I think that that's important to us. And, you know, I think of it a little further than that because we need to look at what the GSEs are expecting whenever we're doing these complex assignments. And I think that that can carry over to when we're doing assignments for individuals or perhaps in-house. You know, we need to, as I said before, we need to establish our method and we need to be consistent with that. So this course goes in detail about some of these odd properties and some of the approaches to how I've handled it.
That's awesome. And that course is up and available right now.
Yes, it is.
How many hours credit is that course?
I think that one is a 3.5-hour credit, but I will tell you this, Brian, I have another complex situations complex situations CE course that'll be coming out very shortly with Appraiser eLearning. That is going to be a longer course. However, we know that sometimes it's the situation within the property itself that makes it complex.
Yeah,
like access to another level, things such as that. So
yeah,
I
pulled up to a house one time. This is a true story. I pulled up to the house one time and I get out of my car and the homeowner didn't come out the front door. He was sitting in the car in the driveway and he got out of the car and walked right up, beeline right to me. And I said, hi, I'm Bryan Reynolds, the appraiser. He's like, okay, great. What do you know about this house? And I'm like, what? He said, what do you know about this house? And I'm like, it's got blue shutters. I don't know anything about this house. I just pulled up. And he's like, well, we had a sewer line under this house. Didn't know it. The sewer line busted. We've had raw sewage go up to 4 feet in our basement. It's all been pumped out. We've tried to clean it, but I'm like, is it safe to even go in there? He's like, well, I don't know. I've been in there a few times. I probably shouldn't have even went in the property. I zipped in, zipped out. But yeah, that completely changed the scope of work here. And it completely changed my fee quote. And it completely changed. I'm not going to put this on a 1004 form. So I'm excited to hear that. Hey, Benjamin, if you're there, can you chime in a minute? Tell me a little bit about Melissa's course that we currently have. How many states is it approved in presently? He's probably smoking a cigarette. Yeah, Ben. All right, well, hopefully he'll be back in a day or two. I don't know. I think.
Sorry about that. What's up?
How many states is Melissa's current course that we have right now approved in?
It's about between 8 and 10 states, and you can see that on our product details page from our site. So if you go to appraisereLearning.com, view our course catalog and look for Appraising Complex Properties with Melissa Bond, you'll see where it's approved.
So
it's
approved.
It's also pending in a handful of states.
Okay, so it's already approved in several states, more pending, and obviously that's just going to keep going. So if you're watching, you want more, check that out. Melissa, what's your favorite color and your favorite number?
Okay, favorite color would be yellow. Favorite number is number 1. What else?
Yellow 1. Ben, can we get a discount code for a yellow 1? That's Melissa's favorite color, and that's her favorite number. Yellow 1 will get you a nice discount. I don't know, Ben, what do you want? 15%. How about that?
Let's do 20.
20. He's giving away the farm again. You got to stop that, Ben. You're killing me.
Go for it, Ben.
Yellow 1 will get you a 20% discount, and that's not going to last very long, guys. It actually will extend that to all of our courses. We give these webinars to you free of charge. I'm not being paid. Melissa's not being paid. We do this continuously on the 4th Thursday of every month. It's our way to give back to you. But we do hope that when you need CE, you remember us. Give us a little love here at Appraiser eLearning. Yellow 1 is Melissa's favorite color and number. You'll get a 20% discount. Melissa, give me 5 more minutes. We'll get through these questions, and I'll let you go look at a complex property. Michael Brunson. Hi, Mike. Glad to have you on the program. He says, be cautious. Be cautious of regulators/clients that will try to fit your square peg into a round hole they are used to seeing. Communication is the key. Thank you, Mike, for that. I appreciate it very, very much. Communication is the key. Becky says, one of these 1 bedroom above grade and the rest in the basement, would you think that it a good way to communicate with the reader to use the functional utility, a functionality line on the URAR to put the total GLA, BR, BA, bedroom, bathroom, and adjust for the differences in total B? Becky, I don't care how you do it. Melissa's been saying throughout this program, communication. Just communicate what you're doing, how you're getting that results of your analysis and rationale. I really don't care how you do it. You can do it however it might look cleaner that way. As opposed to making, an adjustment for GLA or up above GLA and then another adjustment in the basement. And so if you want to do that, you can make no adjustments there and then go to the utility line and either make an adjustment or put comments there that say, hey, while these are different, my market perceives this 4-bedroom house all above grade exactly the same as a 1-bedroom above grade with 3-bedroom below grade. They both consider both of those properties as 4-bedroom homes. I'm not making any adjustment. I don't think there's a problem with that. You just need to communicate that. Joyan says, I'm concerned about permitting for that Kwanzaa hut, as the example shown, a limited number of windows. What about permitting, Melissa? Do you check permitting first on these conversions? Great question, Julian.
Okay, I can speak to that for just a moment. The first thing I want to say is, yes, this was permitted. You only have a 2-bedroom property right there in that Quonset hut that I showed you. And if you can remember, the front of the house had a window that was for one of the bedrooms. The back of the property had half of that Quonset hut was GLA. Half of it was a storage area. And that second window for that second bedroom went out into the storage area, which of course would have been your egress. Now, so you were fine as far as egress from both of your bedrooms were concerned. And this was not a conversion. This was built as such. That's one of the things I want us to think about when we're looking at some of these unique properties. It was designed this way. This is just the exterior construction, exterior design and appeal that was selected by the homeowner. Folks are creative here in Mississippi, guys. We are some creative little individuals, okay?
All right. Julian says, am concerned about the term I can't even say that again.
Barndominium. It does
Dominiums,
not
yeah.
have negative connotations here in Mississippi. We are proud of those.
Okay. And she's asking about that. I guess she hasn't heard of it either. She said, is there common use somewhere like implied with a condominium? It looks like an apartment addition to the original barn. Am I wrong?
Okay.
So that's common in your market, right, Melissa? That's how
it's very common for what was once the barn to now be converted, that upstairs loft area to be converted into living space. And I will even go one further, and I will tell you, I had a large home, and I did not want to have my personal appraisal office in my home anymore. And I built a barndominium. We had the barn was about 3,000 square foot on grade. And I had maybe I'd say probably a 1,200 square foot office above that. And it was designed that way. It was designed with plumbing and could have been converted very easily to an accessory dwelling unit.
Very cool. Very cool. Hey, RF, who accepts an assignment without understanding the problem and researching it first? Accepting an assignment is an engagement, and getting out is sticky. Not as bad as sending in a signed legal document. RF, I agree with you to an extent. However, you send me an order, maybe I try to research it. But you're gonna communicate to me what it is I'm doing. At least you should. And then if I go out to the property and it's something completely different, if I want to withdraw from this assignment, I'm the one steering this ship. I'm going to withdraw from this assignment, or I'm going to charge you additional money. I understand what you're saying, but we all need to be flexible on both parts, and it doesn't need to be common practice that I call and complain on every assignment and try and get out of it or charge more money. I get that. I'm sensitive to that. So I think it's a little bit of we all need to communicate. We all need to try and get along. We're all in this somewhat together. I know a lot of the folks watching are not big fans of AMCs. I've never been a big fan of AMCs, but I do agree that there's some better to work with than others.
Right.
And I'll go on record of saying I'm sure there's many AMCs that say there's some appraisers better to work with than others too, right? So we've got to take any anger or hate out of the equation and be professional and try and figure a way to all get along.
Brian, can I add something to
You
that?
bet.
One thing I would like to say in the case of this this Quonset hut home, my client was not aware that it was a Quonset hut. So you see, there are many times I've gone out to properties that were on leased land where the homeowner making the loan told the loan officer, oh no, it's fee simple. It's a lease fee. So, there are times when the client does not know what they have because it's not been communicated to them.
Right. And many times, depending on where you are in the country, your assessor's office, we call them PVA here in Kentucky, they may not have updated their records lately. So you go out and look at a property and, you think that it's one thing, and you get out there and they've ripped the manufactured house off. And the assessor hasn't picked up the new improvement, which is a 10,000 square foot house.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry, I got news for you. I'm not going to appraise that the same amount I quoted you when I thought it was the manufactured house sitting on an acre, right? So there's always exceptions, and we on both sides of the aisle, we need to allow flexibility for those instances. Melissa, thank you so much for being here. I mean, I could talk to you all day, and I believe our listeners could stay on and listen all day, but we all got to get to work sometime and make some money. What do you got going on next? I know you said you got classes coming up. Where are you going to be over the next month or two?
Well, over the next month or two, I think the best place our listeners can find me is at the ACTS conference. Folks, the ACTS conference is in my own backyard, and I am just so excited that you have the opportunity to come to Bay St. Louis, that big metropolis, Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, and you will view for yourself some of these homes I'm talking about. I hope that each of you really take the opportunity to join me down here because as Bryan said, it is an exciting day. You have just a plethora of speakers, which means you stay on the edge of your seat listening. You will not be sleeping in this CE class.
Yeah,
I promise.
you're going to have a good time. Melissa's going to be there. I'm going to be there. The whole team from Appraiser eLearning is going to be there. NAA is going to be there. And it's for sure to be a good time. So everyone watching, please make plans to try and get down to Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. What is that, about an hour drive from New Orleans? Is that?
It's 50 minutes, only 50 minutes. And I'm actually going to do a list of some fun things to do in this area. For those folks that plan to stay past, I will highlight some of the good things that you really want to take advantage of while you're in my area.
Very, very cool. And then finally, if someone watching the webinar wants to reach out to you personally directly, how do they do that? An email address, your website? What's the best way to get in touch with Melissa Bond?
Go to my website, ceinstructor.com. I also have my email address there, or I'll give it to you now. It's very simple. mbond, just like my name, mbond at datastar.net, datastar.net. I will be happy to communicate with you. I'm just so enjoyed being here today, Bryan. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much for being here. Been wanting to get together with you for a long, long time. So sorry I kept you over, but that's just the nature of the beast sometime. For all of you watching, this session's been recorded. You can go back to Appraiser eLearning on the YouTube channel and take a look. If you have any questions, contact Ben at Appraiser eLearning. Reach out to us by phone. If you'd like to be on the program, we encourage you to reach out to us if you know someone else you'd like to see on the program. Let us know who that person is. We'll reach out to them. We probably will have a special edition webinar right around the corner. I mean, just real quick about this ANSI thing, because it's a big deal and we need to figure it out. We need to rally the troops. So thank you for watching. We hope to see you again next time. From Melissa Bond, I'm your host, Bryan Reynolds. You've been watching the Appraisal Report webinar. Until next time, thank you very much.